Welcome to What the FTE, the podcast for HR leaders who are done playing defense and ready to shape the future of work. What if the real key to performance isn't behavior, mindset, or values, but physics? I'm talking to Wei, co-founder of HumanOp Technologies, a platform that claims to give leaders a 99% accurate blueprint of how their people are wired using a physics-based algorithm rooted in human design. He helps some of the world's biggest companies stop managing personalities and start engineering flow with a system that turns traditional org charts, roles, and culture fit on their head. Wait, I've been watching your content and I could not be more excited to spend some time with you.
Well, I'm glad you're excited because sometimes people watch my content and they're like, what the
You got a really good hook. You're like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're growing, this fast, if you want to I'm like, tell me more. My face couldn't get closer to the screen.
Yeah, it's really interesting is that a lot of people will look at our technology that, oh my God, this is brand new. And in a way, because we use language to create precision as a tool that it's supposed to be used for, it feels like a new generation of understanding human beings, but we're actually tapping into the OG method of how human beings survived over the last 2 million years. And it's literally through the nature of physics. If you think about it, modern language as we know it today that we rely so heavily on to shape our mindset, shape our perspectives, our opinions, has been around for like 50,000 years. Modern language as we know it today. Now, that seems like a lot until you compare it to how long people have actually been around. And then we look at 2 million years, then you have to ask the question, well, what did we do for 1.95 million years to survive so that we can even have language be invented? And the reality is we did what every other being in nature does today even, is we looked into nature, we observed nature, we were connected with nature. Now, the beautiful thing about today is that we have this powerful tool called language so that we don't have to do grunts and clicks and pointing things to understand each other, right? We can actually add more precision by using language to define what it is we're actually seeing instead of just grunting and pointing and doing those types of things to figure it out.
I mean, that's how I communicate with my children.
Yeah, exactly. But that's such a perfect way to kind of get a glimpse back into the past of how people actually survive. We survive like children do today before they get a grasp of language. They observe what's going on around them. They absorb the energy, the vibe, the emotions of everything that's going on. And that's how they survive childhood. Now, granted, they get a leg up because they have us as parents around to help make sure they don't fall into a hole and never get out of it, right? But that's what happened back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So we've evolved away from that mortality piece of dying because we just didn't know any better. But now we can actually use different tools such as language to be able to further understand what it is that we've been seeing since day one. So children, if we're really paying attention, actually are great examples of how our technology works. They observe, they watch, they learn, and then somewhere down the road we use language and we lie to ourselves and distort ourselves out of that understanding.
That I need to learn more about how this works. Like, can you explain this to someone who is, at a grade 5 or lower reading capability?
Well, yeah. So the best way to kind of get a fundamental understanding of what we're doing. So about over 20 years ago, so we had 20 years of research to back up this technology. It's patent about 10 years ago. We have four co-founders. One of our co-founders is the progenitor, Dr. Zana Hackett. She's the creator of this technology, birthed it about over 20 years ago. And she was one of those individuals, those geniuses that are really, really good at that one thing. And that's how she was able to birth this. I always say, we want geniuses to not be that great at everything else and be good at that one thing, because otherwise they wouldn't be geniuses, right? You can't genius out something if you're distracted by everything else that you're good at, right? So she posited this question because she was a big fan of helping people understand each other. And she said, well, while these other tools are great, starting with the MMPI back in the OG days, all the way up to Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders and DISC, I mean, there's thousands out there, right? And the fundamental strength and flaw of all these is they're based on psychometrics. They're based on psychology. They're based on perspectives and opinions. And again, while it's better than nothing, because at least we're doing something, right? But we're also calibrating on the most volatile side of human existence. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced some traumatic event and you completely changed your perspective of life forever, right? In an instant, your perspectives, your opinion, your psychometric pattern and behavior pattern, how you observe the world can change. So she said, well, that's nice, but how could we possibly calibrate and understand the core nature of a human being on something that's so volatile? So then she posited the question. It's like, well, what part of human beings changes the least over time? And then when she thought about it, it's like, well, like everything else in nature, the physical nature of our human being. So when you leave this conversation, you go to the gathering with all the people in your organizations and the part, take a look around and notice that everybody looks different. But that's also how we remember them. We might not always remember their name, but if we look at their face and look at their gait and look at their structure and look at how they stand and how their posture and everything, we can remember, like, I know you. I may not remember your name, but I know you. Right? Tell me what your name is again. So here's the thing. And so when we remember and think about that, is what our technology has done. It has decoded the reason why every human being looks different. So basically, once she was able to figure this out, that the algorithm be able to patent it, the algorithm basically translates what nature has been telling us since day one of how to truly understand the nature of ourselves and for ourselves to know what nature of ourselves to lean into. You know, when you go around the world and look at different countries and everybody kind of looks similar, right? There's similar qualities that I see from one country to the next. And modern society has made that an ethnic thing or made that a country-like thing. The reality is, before they laid down country lines, people were already tribing in that way. And then when we decided to lay down country lines, it's like, oh, okay, well, if we stay within the boundaries, we'll just keep tribing the same way. It just makes it easy to tribe because we're all kind of tribe. We all find the resonance of qualities that we can harmonize with, we can get along with by just the nature of understanding. And then as civilization continued to develop, we just propagated within the country lines and we just kept creating a bigger tribe of resonance. So it's not an ethnic thing. It's not a cultural thing. It's a nature thing that just has been artificially grown because we forced country lines to happen. Right?
This is wild. This is wild. So, I mean, you're saying, like, based on the way I look, you can...
Yeah. You want a little taste?
Yeah, I want to taste.
Okay, so now even if I don't get a chance to see your entire body, right? But there's
chiseled.
Yeah, there's there you go, perfect. Okay, I know exactly what that is now. Well, with that in mind, no, actually, you do potentially have you naturally may have a propensity to do that. But what I'll tell you, what I see off the top, just an initial glance, based on how you physically show up and the volume of certain physical attributes that you have, one of the things that stands out the most is your cleverness and your wit that comes from what we call the perspective trait. Now, the perspective trait is a processing trait, but it's a really fast processing trait. It's where the problem solver lives. It's the part that strategy lives. It's the part of you that can very quickly identify, just like a Sherlock Holmes way, like really quickly identify, that's not working, got to fix that piece. But because that part of you is so quick and strategic and efficient in identifying the problem, that's where impatience also lives. The part of you that can get really impatient with the world around you because you got it already, nobody else has. And you're like, come on, guys, let's go. And that's where impatience lives in you. So that part of you is one of the prominent things that I see. But then there's another part of you that's not as quite as active, is a little bit more passive, and then in that it is very collaborative. It is very inclusive by nature. It's kind of like where compassion lives, a part of you that really kind of gets a kick out of helping another human being. It's an archival part of you, though, that is where wisdom lives. So the part of you that can, once you remember something, that it may take a little bit of time to kind of absorb it all, but once it's in there, accessing it is instant, to the point where sometimes people will say, how do you remember all that? And it's the part of you in your nature that has the natural archiver built into you.
So you can tell. I mean, you're like a psychic. You maybe, like, I don't know who you've been talking to, but yeah. I mean, that's. I had to take a lot of tests to figure that one out. Like, what? I mean.
Well, and that's the power behind our technology. So I'll tell you why a lot of people haven't heard this technology because, once again, it goes back to geniuses are genius for a reason. They are so brilliant and so divinely designed to do that one thing that they fall short on a whole bunch of other things, such as global, presence, or being able to market it, in an effective way, in an efficient way, right? And so when I came across this about 10 years ago, I've been in the human optimization game now for over 30 years. And so when I came across this, I was already in that world of wanting to help people understand themselves. And then when I experienced this technology, I said, what is this? Right. And I talked to Dr. Zana, and she explained the science. I went down the rabbit hole of quantum physics and everything like that to help understand nature of this technology, because she knew my background was in computer science engineering at UCLA and everything like that. So I'm no stranger to quantum physics, and she still lost me down that rabbit hole. And then when I finally was able to wrap most of my head around this, I said, holy cow, where has this been? This is like the holy grail of human understanding. The applications are endless. We can completely change the corporate world. We can completely change how sports are even played, how people are honored for their unique nature of being, so we don't have to push anybody in any kind of a pigeonhole or a bucket. I can tell you now, having 10 years of using this on a coaching consulting model, the lives that we have not only changed, but saved, from young teenagers to young adults who are lost and like doing compensatory behaviors like drugs, alcohol, and ideations of leaving the planet. Just by showing them their unique nature has completely changed the game. And so I talked to her, and she goes, well, we're really big in Encinitas. And Encinitas is a small, tiny town above, just north of San Diego. I said, Xana, that's like not even a finger pit of the planet. This belongs in the hands of every human being. And now, at that time, I don't think the world was quite ready yet for something this revolutionary. And so after about 8 years now, thankfully, because now people are used to this craziness that AI is bringing to the table, we can now have an easier time introducing this to people, because they're already used to the crazy what's happening in the world right now. And this is just like almost more grounding and more safe than what AI is doing right now, bringing to the table, right? So it's I think timing is everything. Last year we made a big pivot that I finally get to, because Dr. Zana is a little bit afraid of this getting in the hands of the wrong people who will take advantage of it. With any powerful tool, there's somebody out there that's trying to do something with it in a weird way. And then we are now hopefully exiting out of the beta phase of our mobile app, and our SaaS model, which will then make it so much easier to get it in the hands of every human being that has a phone, that has a laptop. And we have a freemium model now, whereas before it was behind this huge curtain of only those who could afford it can have access to it. But now we can get everybody on it. And that's been my dream. And this is why I'm out here talking about it now, because I can now.
So, this sounds like a perfect tool for a dating app. I missed the dating app phase and found my life partner early.
Great.
pre Tinder. We'll call that PT in history. But this seems like I feel like I've got a lot of friends that could use this for their dating life.
Yeah. Even though we don't promote it that way, people absolutely can see, because it's a much more organic, cleaner way of connecting with people, where you don't have to worry about the catfishing. You don't have to worry about the lies and the beautiful profile, or someone writing somebody else's profile, because you can't pretend to be someone if you're not naturally designed like them, which is impossible. Because here's the thing, there's 8 billion people on the planet. There's so many variables in our algorithm. There's literally 8 billion unique results. No two human beings will get the exact same result on our back end. The raw data is that vast.
And what do you need to do to get a profile on this? Do I have to answer 500 questions?
No, it's less than 100. It's like less than 90 questions, actually. It takes 10-15 minutes, because here's the thing. A lot of these assessments out there are overly complex. Why? Complexity doesn't exist in nature. Nature is simple. Nature is really simple. Now, a lot of people associate simplicity and complexity with easy and hard as one and the same. They're not. Nature is fundamentally hard or easy. Look at nature. Sometimes nature is hard. Sometimes nature is easy, right? We already, as human beings, have to deal with life being hard and easy at different times. It's the biorhythm of all existence. Simplicity and complexity was introduced by human beings. Primarily, complexity is a way to establish personal value. Think about it. When new CEOs or new leadership goes into an organization, they bring in a whole set of their way of doing things, which is fundamentally complex because it only makes sense to that leader at that moment in time. And in order to establish their value, said, this is my system, my process. You might not get it now, and it might seem complicated, but don't worry. I, the guru of the leader, shall teach you how to understand the complexity I bring to the table. If you dissect it all, fundamentally, business is simple. Leadership is simple, right? You basically have, like, if you look at business, right? A lot of gurus are now saying that. It's like, well, really, business is three main pillars, right? You've got operations, you've got sales and marketing, you've got fulfillment. Really, there's really nothing else. And everything falls into those three pillars. Why do we need to complicate that, right? And so what makes things complicated is previously, before our technology, human performance and human engagement and human relationships in the context of business has been unquantifiable. But what if we could quantify it? And that's what we've been doing over the last 20 years. We've been doing consulting work with startups all the way up to Fortune 10 companies. And we were able to quantify what has previously unquantifiable when it comes to human performance to a degree where certain organizations, when they are willing to invest at that level, they can actually create a system that no longer needs people to compare themselves to others in terms of performance. They can actually create a unique, personalized performance return on investment metric. Because every human being in an organization is an investment, if you really look at it. It's not a labor cost. Okay. If you work in an organization that continues to see people as a labor cost, run the other way and go to an organization that actually sees people as an investment, because you're investing in these people to help you grow the company, right? Now,
it's an asset.
Yeah, totally an asset. Now, the problem in the past is that how do we gauge success when everybody is different? Well, let's take the best of the best and just tell everybody to compare themselves to them. And if you can't perform like them, and then you create this zero-sum game where there's always a winner and then everybody else is a loser, right? So what if we can say, like, you don't have to compare yourself to that person has a bigger gas tank and obviously can do a lot more. The output potential is higher. But if someone doesn't have that big of a gas tank per se, then expecting them to perform as someone who has a 50-gallon gas tank and you only have a 20-gallon gas tank, well, who's going to burn out? That person may be able to hit that, but is it sustainable? No, that person's going to burn out. But if you say, well, let me just tone down the 50-gallon guy and make him like perform like everybody else, well, that person's going to get disengaged. They're going to perform really well, and then they can skate, and eventually they're going to leave because they're disengaged from the company. They're understimulated. So how do we resolve that? Well, we recognize the fact that everybody has different energy pools. We have recognized that everybody has different styles of whether it be selling or operating. And if they're doing the same thing, why don't we set unique KPIs for each individual? That's what our technology, one of the use cases has been to be able to establish unique personal KPIs for every person. So the only person they need to really compete with is themselves. That has changed the game for so many organizations and created a culture that is not so competitive, dog eat dog, but rather supportive internally. Wow. Without leadership having to get in there and mitigate conflict of competition that comes from this distorted competition.
This is wild. So I mean, I'm curious. Imagine I come to you, I'm like, Wei, we need your help. You know, we're, say, close to 500 people across 13 countries. I mean, how do you implement something like this? It seems like a massive undertaking.
Well, under the old model, 100% yes. You know, we did this on a consultative model. We did the evaluations manually. That's why
across hundreds of people.
Yeah, and that's why it was so expensive. And people paid it because they're like, doesn't matter, because what we get out of it, we're going to get the ROI so fast because it completely changed the bottom line, right? So now we have two different platforms depending on the size of the organization. We have a B2C platform where that's our main focus, is helping as many human beings as possible at least get a chance to objectively understand themselves so they can educate the world around them and just really focus on how to create a most optimal life for themselves. They can take that same concept into their business, because a human being is not just their work. They're also not just their personal life. They're everything, right? We have a separate platform we're rolling out. It's still in beta right now. It's called the Maestro platform, that allows teams to have ask for and get access to all those B2C apps, the data, and populate it in their dashboard. That allows them to, at a glance, see where the person's traits are, what drives every individual, what are their current hotspots that are contributing to fatigue, what are the next 90 days look like to create a most optimal existence. Then you can then use that to identify gaps, because we have spider graph like representations for every human being that will literally show you where the gaps that do not give them this task to do, because they're not naturally designed to do that, though they can learn to do it, but they're going to gas out so much quicker. It's going to take so much more energy for them to do that same task than someone who is naturally designed to do it. That's the pros and cons of being human, right? We are so good. The pro is we are such amazing machines that can be trained and taught to do anything. The con is we're such amazing machines that can be trained and taught to do anything. You and I can go live like Usain Bolt. We can eat what he eats, train like he trains. We could do everything that he does to the letter. But you put the three of us on the track, who do you think is going to win?
Clearly me.
Yeah, see? Right? That shredded guy that you can't even tell the sleeper, right?
Yeah.
Let me take off my shirt.
Let me tell you, this dad bod moves, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Right? But you know what I mean, right? That's why we've worked with Olympians, pro athletes, and everything like that, not only just to help them understand how they uniquely are designed and what to lean into to create the most optimal performance results, but also to help them understand what are the best times of the day for them to train. Because every trait has a passive trait and an active nature, right? There's an active trait or there's passive traits. So if you try to force something, this is what kills me. People like the Gary V's of the world, the Alex Hormozis, who are designed to be super active first thing in the morning, they basically passively, or maybe even actively, for a while, Gary Vee in his younger years was actively doing, shaming people because they don't get up first thing in the morning to get productive, right?
5 a.m. club.
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's the challenge with that. Someone can give you taught and trained to do that, but the results are not going to be the same. Why? Because what if their first and largest trait in the morning is a passive trait? Well, yeah, they're biorhythmically not designed to be hyperactive first thing in the morning. You have no idea how many people who have had passive traits in the morning that are high performing entrepreneurs that I say, you know what, just ease into your day. And I'm guaranteed the productivity on the rest of the day is going to shoot through the roof. And he goes, okay. And they do it. And every time they do it, gangbusters. They go crazy. It's nuts. Even athletes too. Athletes who were like taught, who are passive traits in the morning, but they were taught that they had to get up at 5 a.m. and start doing all their training and everything like that. Even though they were able to get away with it, but what as a byproduct, what happened is they started getting weird, wonky injuries. So what we then did is say, look, and talk to the coach about it and say, look, they're more passive in the morning. What if we shift their training regimen to be a little bit later in the day where they're more active, traits are more prominent? Let's see what happens, right? And so we did that. And all of a sudden, the injuries started to go away. Their performance levels started to go up because they were tapping into the most optimal time of the day for them to maximize those types of activities, and allowed the body to be more in alignment with those passive times of the day so it could recover better, so it can actually absorb information better or do different things better. Yeah.
Wow. And you can get that all from this app?
All from this app. This technology reveals so much that intrinsically it comes with our fundamental challenge of, well, what do we hone in on? What do we focus on? Because it helps the entirety of that human ecosystem. It gives that human being the ability to truly understand the nature of how they communicate, the type of environment that's optimal for their existence, the type of communication style that they have, and how they communicate with others who have different communication styles. What motivates them? What drives them? What biorhythmic flow? How do they structure their day? I mean, what type of natural perspective do they have in their life that they can lean into so they don't have to get judged that they're being too negative or too positive or too neutral? These are all the things, and it's all based on gravity, nuclear force, electromagnetism, the fundamentals of physics that defines all of nature. And like I said, it's like, I don't know how Dr. Zana figured out. That's why we call her the genius. But man, when I dove deep into that rabbit hole, I was like, oh my God, this humanity needs this so bad. I mean, if we get this out there, and this is the crazy thought process I have, if we get this out there in the hands of every human being, which I don't know if that's even happened in our lifetime, but let's say we do. Okay, let's play that game, that thought game, right?
Yeah.
Wars as we know it, conflict as we know it today will be history. Because think of it this way. Let's pretend you don't like the color green. Like you hate it. Like every time you see it, it makes you sick, right? Does that mean that every day you're going to go outside and look at grass and get mad at it and yell at it for being green? No, because you know it can't help it. Grass is just green, right? Imagine if human
Yeah.
beings can start seeing each other this way. Yeah, you might trigger me doing this, but I know that's because that's just your nature. We're just naturally not that compatible that way. So I'm not going to take it personally that you're just being you, whether it be a strong expression of yourself or a weak expression of yourself, but it's still naturally you. When we introduce objectivity into self-understanding, which then naturally objectively understanding others, where is the conflict now? Distorted conflict of cultural rhetoric, societal rhetoric, familial rhetoric. I mean, so many of us have been nurtured to be triggered with things that we normally would not be triggered about. I always tell people, do the baby test. It's like, what do you mean? Okay, take a look at a situation that's triggering you right now. And then take a baby and put the baby in front of that event to observe the event and see if the baby gets triggered. If the baby doesn't get triggered, that means you learned how to get triggered. Someone taught
Yeah.
you to be triggered about that moment.
That's why. And you get all this from 90 questions or less than 90 questions. Like is there biometrics involved in this? Is there
Well, it asks you questions about your physicality, questions you can't
really?
lie about. And
That's
so
interesting.
built into that is a kind of a built-in lie detector. And eventually we actually have a couple technologies that we're working on right now that does full body scan, the same thing they do for fitness. They
Yeah.
have the suits that you put on and it measures everything. So we're measuring the dimensions, the angles and everything like that of the entire human being. That's going to take our technology to the next level precision. But right now it's already eerily accurate to a point where people sometimes freak out. They're like, what voodoo is this? And what I just did with you in
Yeah.
the beginning, we can teach everybody how to do it. That's the cool thing about this. It is a teachable system. We have over 100, maybe 200 trained practitioners in the world right now. And we're hoping that we can get the rest of the world taught, that it becomes like a household thing, that, when everybody grows up learning this, so that we can see the world authentically and choose to live authentic.
That's pretty wild. I mean, is there pushback around you're using somebody's physical traits to assess them? Like, is there
Of course.
that
Look
seems
at the
like
culture that we live in today, where they're so quick to cancel anything or be angry about anything, right? So anything
yeah.
that even smells like, oh, is this a racial thing? It's like, let me talk to you about race. And I go back and talk about the country lines.
Yeah. That's
Racism only exists because there's country lines. If there were no country lines, it wouldn't be. If everybody just tribes and we just understand the distinctions between tribes, right? And we just understand that, right? But I get it. The importance of it was to advance civilization in a way to be more efficient and everything like that. So there's pros and cons to everything. It's just really important that humanity as a whole starts to really kind of take a step back and objectively appreciate everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and not make it a personal thing, right? But yeah, like with anything that is revolutionary and that can potentially change the direction and remove the humanity from the matrix, there is going to be pushback because it's scary as hell. And it's not because they want to push back because they don't believe in it. They have gotten comfortable to just survive in the flow that they've learned to survive in. It's like I just figured out how to navigate this toxic world, and now you're telling me that I have to shift and then change the way I survived so that I can actually be authentic and have a better life. No, that sounds weird to me, and that sounds foreign to me. And I know I might have that, but there's no guarantees in life, isn't there? It's like, of course not. There never is. Anybody that offers you that, well, then they're selling you something else, right?
yeah. I have a million questions. We do have a question from an audience member. One of our listeners who's curious about how this works in practice, he asks, is rewiring actually possible? And if so, how do you apply this in real life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually started following that thread. So I saw that question. I was like, oh, cool. Great question. So it depends on how you define rewiring, right? A lot of times, most of the time when it comes to this type of work, people define rewiring as what the NLP world does, right? You rewire your perspectives in life, your opinions and everything like that. Rewiring happens on a daily basis with most human beings, right? You stub your toe, you're temporarily rewiring your day because all your day is filtered through the pain of your toe. And so now it's temporarily rewired. And so if you want to talk about rewiring from a psychological standpoint, yeah, absolutely. You can rewire your psychological mindset and your perspectives every moment, from one moment to the next. What we love about the physics and the nature of physics is that you go to a tree and you tell a tree not to be a tree, good luck, right? A rock is not going to be anything else but a rock, right? Now, human beings are a lot more complex than that. And because of the precision of what we bring to the table, once you understand the physical nature of your being, why would you want to rewire something if it's going to just cause depletion energetically from your ecosystem? So let me kind of touch on a little bit of the geekery here. Without gravity, our physical bodies could not maintain form. That's the fundamentals around gravity. A lot of people think gravity just keeps us on Earth, but no, gravitational forces in everything, right? It helps maintain shape of all physical objects. Now, as long as we are alive, we all know with cells and molecules and everything like that. And at the fundamental of it all, we eat, we exercise, we do all the things. Why? So that we can maintain energy in our ecosystem, right? All food that we eat, all air that we breathe, a combination of everything like internal combustion engine combines and comes together and produces what? Energy. Now, how that energy is used and optimized, it depends on what we call the nuclear forces of that hold all the molecules together. When there is stable, strong nuclear forces, we're more efficient. It doesn't take as much energy just to stay alive. When there's unstable nuclear forces, then we're spending energy just keeping the molecules together on top of everything else that we're doing in our life. So an analogy of that would be, let's say you and I are having this conversation, right, Andrew? And where we are right now, you're sitting in your studio, I'm sitting in my office, and we're on a chair, right? You and I could probably, if you didn't have to go to your event afterwards, me and mine, we could probably sit here and just geek out and talk about this till the cows come home, right?
Seriously.
Now, let's have the same conversation, but now you and I are standing on floating logs of a moving river, and we have to balance and struggle to stay afloat so we can keep having this exact same conversation. How much longer or shorter can we maintain that same conversation in that scenario?
Until someone falls off the log.
Right. And how much more energy is it going to take for us to stay in that place to have that conversation?
I don't know how good you are at log rolling. A lot.
A lot, right? I mean, it just requires all that extra core work and this balancing. So that's what we're talking about here. We have been able to identify what we call motivational drivers as certain activities that will help promote strong nuclear force reactions in our molecular ecosystem that makes it so efficient that doing the same things that we need to do in life takes less energy. We're more efficient. When we are not feeding our motivational drivers, the drivers that we're meant to feed from the daily activities we do, yes, we can still live life. Yes, we can still move forward and do our career because we were trained to do that and went to school to do that. And we got all this certification for that. But it's going to take more energy to do the exact same thing without having fed our motivational drivers and the nuclear forces that are necessary to maintain that in an efficient way. And that's what we mean by keeping people optimized. Let's make you as efficient as possible so that doing the same things in every night doesn't take as much energy as it's taking now.
That's wild. I mean, I can't help but think, your optimization, in theory, if you look at it in the reverse, your optimization could actually be reflected in your physiology. So do you see that in people?
Yes.
Like, is that
yes.
Like they look different?
I'll share with you. So we've had a lot of clients that once they became more optimized, it's like that commercial. Friends are coming up going, "What are you doing? You look younger," because the body becomes more optimized and has an easier time doing the daily healing that it needs to do from one day to the next, right? We beat ourselves up every single day through working out, through eating weird foods, through just living in toxic, polluted areas and stuff like that. And so every night when we go to sleep, our body starts to go into overdrive to start healing all the things that we've exposed ourselves to. When we keep our body optimized, energy stores are there so that you're not running on fumes trying to heal yourself. Most people, because they struggle with that, they age faster because what they're doing is they're healing themselves based on the fumes instead of solid energy. every single night when they go to sleep, right? Gone are the days of being the badge of burning yourself out, because now they're realizing why you look so old is because what? You're running on fumes. You're using fumes to heal yourself every night when you sleep.
I mean, it's wild, and probably why my age and most of age verification technologies is significantly higher than my biological age. I gotta get on this program.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you right now, just because, and it's just because, I love the beauty of human connection. For me, I see every human connection as a miracle. One, just because now I know everybody's unique because of our technology, right? But if you think about it, right? Out of 8 billion people on the planet, what's the probability of like you and I meeting, having a conversation, and getting along? It's not like, oh God, I can't stand this guy, right? And I think it's the human ego that basically is quick to decide the label of that connection. Me, I don't care about what that label is. I'm just relishing in the miracle of the fact that we got connected some way, somehow, and I'm grateful for that, however it unfolds. So why I'm saying that is that after we're done here, yeah, take the assessment. But better than that, after you see what the public see, now that we're connected, ping me. I'll take you behind the curtain of Oz. We'll go down that rabbit hole of geekery together, and I'll show you what the raw data, all the depth and the breadth of what it could actually do beyond what the public sees on the basic platform. More than happy to. It's free anyway. Just go take it, and then after that, I'll take you behind the. Hey,
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Well, I mean, yeah. Sign me up. Sign me up.
Let's do it.
I think we've got another listener who wants to sign up, and this one's from Riddy. She's coming from a psychology background and wants to know, how is this different from neuroscience or traditional psych models? And can someone rewire themselves, and where would they even begin?
Yeah. So neuroscience, love it. Psychology, love it. Because psychology took an undertaking of what was probably one of the most difficult things to do, which taps into chaos theory. The quantum nature of the human mind is such that it generates things out of chaos, right? And what psychology has been trying to do since the beginning is trying to nail down and label and identify patterns out of that chaos that happens in human neurology, human psychology. A lot of what psychology is that if we see enough of the pattern repeat itself, then we can hopefully use that pattern to help people understand themselves and understand others better. What our technology does that is different is that we talk about within the human mind, you still need the cells of the mind. You still need a physical structure. Otherwise, there is no psychology, right? Now, one of the best analogies I think would be to understand how psychology works, or how neuroscience works, or the mindset piece works, right? In terms of rewiring and everything. I don't know how much of an audiophile you are, but you understand speaker cones, right? In terms of that. So let's say you and I have two exact same JBL speaker cones, right? But our physical bodies are different. Yours is more chiseled. You're more like, you can be Usain Bolt, and I'm just this regular dude, right? But we have the same training, we have the same background, we have the same culture. That's our speaker cone. Now, you know that if you put a speaker cone on, like, say, your box is like this really thick cherry wood with a acoustically treated internal area with a nice little, exhaust port in the back. Mine's this balsa wood, plexiglass, and maybe I forgot to put the exhaust port in the back. We take the same speaker, run the same volume music from the same tuner, same song, same volume, same everything. Is it going to sound the same? Is the speaker now going to express the exact same way? No, right? Why? Because the box is different. The container is different. So neuroscience and psychology, this is the beautiful thing I love about our technology. We play well with every modality that is wanting to make the world a better place by understanding humanity. We don't say like ours is like, oh yeah, the psychology sucks, neuroscience. No, everything's important, because what we're looking at is you need to take a look at the entire ecosystem. You and I could learn the same thing, have the same parents, and do anything like that. But because our vehicles are different, our physical vehicles are different, we're going to express it differently. We're going to lean into different ways of doing it, because though the speaker cone's the same, the box is different. And that's the missing piece with most of the assessment technology out there. They're not taking into account that nature has given us deep, profound clues into our physical nature. You have to take the physics into account. Like our vocal cords, we don't sound the same. Why? Because the physical nature of our vocal cords are different. So our frequency of what we say, how we say, we can say the exact same thing, is going to land differently. It's going to harmonize differently with different people.
I gotta say, man, your vocal cords are incredible. The harmony you're spitting right now is very intriguing. I love it. Well, I mean, so I mean, you've said HumanOp is a secret weapon for some of the biggest companies in the world. Like, I mean, what are they really using it for?
So the group that loves using us as a secret weapon, that's why nobody knows about it, and they're really good about it. We've worked with a few like smaller, boutique VCs and everything like that. And they use it to either improve the ROI of their entire portfolio by getting a deeper understanding of the teams, the unique startup teams they're investing in. They're also using it sometimes to determine whether or not to invest in a team, because sometimes you don't know what's under the hood and you throw money at it, like you invest in it and realize you just threw gasoline on fire. It's just like, oh, great. And they just have to write it off. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the business. Did you know a successful return on their portfolio, they're happy with 3% most of the time? 3% return. You know how much VCs invest in stuff, right? And the reason why that works, they have a couple of unicorns that basically covers the loss of the entire portfolio.
Yeah.
So I used to go and say, how about we raise it to 10%? And there's like, yeah, you're full of crap, right? So now just saying like, what if we can raise that to 4%? And they're like, how? And then I explain to them. And sometimes we just demo it. Give us a small team. We'll show you. I'll tell you, there was one team that we worked on. I loved the team. They were just a bunch of like really geeky, smart developers, right? And this small VC, they're saying, we don't know. We just invested in them, and it seems like they're really good. They're really smart. The product is progressing, but they're not going anywhere. They're not monetized. I was like, okay, let me show you. Let me just do this as a demo for you guys. So I go in there and I meet the starting team, and they've been a starting team since day one. They got all the money, and they're so uber conservative. So they're not blowing through the money, but they haven't grown. And so we did the assessment for everybody, right? And then they came back, and I looked at it. I was like, there's not one leader in here. So when I sat down with them, I said, I got your results. And they're like, great. I said, let me ask you guys a question. I said, yeah, when you guys decided who was going to be CEO, did you guys like draw straws or something? Their faces went like that. They're like, how did you know that? I was like, well, no, I mean, I'm just seeing the story that I see from your results and everything like that. And somebody had to be CEO. Otherwise, how are you going to pitch, right? They're like, yeah, but we didn't. Did they know that? No, it's like, here's the thing. And I just proposed, because they invested it as like a kind of like an angel seed. We don't want to get involved. You guys are brilliant, have a great product, right? And then I went back to the VC and I said, what you guys have here is a great opportunity, but none of these guys are going to be able to do what you want. Look at this as a kind of like an incubation model. Bring in your heavy hitters that can do the CEO, the COO, and the CFO stuff. Their talent, if you want to keep them in their zone of genius, their talent is in the product, and they can temporarily take on those roles. But if you truly want to get an ROI, treat this as an incubator, not an angel. And so what they did, they shifted gears. They brought in temporary interim CEO, CFO to kind of be able to kind of build it out in a certain way. And very quickly, the whole entire momentum shifted. And we also identified the ideal roles for those people instead of whatever roles they picked. And eventually they got acquired, and they were happily acquired. The guys were like ballistically out, to the moon, because they didn't know what to do. They're thinking about, we don't even know what we're going to do if this goes up and grows. What do I do? And they're so happy like being acquired. And because they're so talented, they weren't let go. They were absorbed into that other organization. And they got the ROI.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, now I want to do this on all my portfolio companies. Like anytime I invest.
Yeah, right. Like, it's one of those things where I have a lot of clients right now that will not hire anybody unless they take the assessment. And we want to make it easier, because there's been pushback because we don't know what this assessment is. It's not Myers-Briggs. It's what is this HumanOp thing, right? So our goal right now is to make it as easy as possible for organizations to present this to potential candidates, because if we make this a household name, If we get this in the hands of so people know that they can come to this and just get a free result and get clarity on their life for free, and if they want to go deeper, they can pay, then hiring will be easier. Companies will have an easier time, and they can just say, hey, when you apply, just supply your HumanOp ID. We'll request access to your data. We can't copy it. We can just look at it. And then from there, they can make even better decisions. I have clients right now that no longer use traditional role titles. What they focus on first and foremost is see if they like them, if there's a good fit. And then when they make it past that first round of just like, hey, let's do a meet and greet, let's see how we are as people, right? Then they take the assessment and then they look at it and they say, okay, these are the tasks that they're naturally designed for and that they can sustainably do long term. Great. And then they customize a role for that person. And then they can make up whatever title they want to claim that role. Because at the end of the day, it's not so much the role title, it's the tasks that they are there to do. And if a human being that looking at their results saying they are not naturally designed for that, yeah, you can force them to do that. But the quality of life and their willingness to engage in longevity and high performance is going to suffer. And the more you push them to do it, they're going to burn out.
That is wild. So, I mean, you've got a team of crazy high performers. And I mean, like you said, there's really only 3 parts of the business, right? So you organize people under those parts of the business based on what their strengths are. So, I mean, what does that do to team dynamics when you know everyone's wiring?
It's so phenomenal. Toe stepping becomes a thing of the past. You know what your lane is, and you can absolutely appreciate someone else's lane. And then so when you realize you're coming across something that you are just not naturally designed for, knowing what someone's results are from the HumanOp technology means that you can directly go to the person that has a natural design for this and a propensity for this and start there versus like, who can I go to, or who do I like, or who do I have a good relationship with that I can pass this off to, or who do I not like? So I can...
yeah. Where am I going to throw this garbage?
Right? And talking about conflict resolution, this technology reveals natural and nurtured triggers, which means natural or nurtured conflict. So we have an algorithm that I just finished putting together a first version of it about 4 months ago. It's called the compatibility matrix algorithm, where team leaders and everything can take their pool of team members and candidates, drag and drop them into a sandbox. And because everything's quantified into mathematics, right, we can actually, independent of skills, independent of personalities, independent of political perspective, we can actually see natural compatibility factors. Yeah. So like anything from 70% up, that's your dream team dynamic that you barely need to manage. They will evolve on their own. They'll grow on their own. It's like kismet, right? 50 to 70%, it's like part-time oversight, right? But they're still pretty good. To 50, it's like full-time oversight. You got to stay on that group, right? Anything below 30, our system will literally say, proceed at your own risk. We do not recommend this combination.
Wow.
And it becomes kind of like a game. We've seen, in the demos that people are like dragging, okay, how about this person? Well, how about this person? Well, how about this? And the number shifts and changes immediately, like real time.
That's wild. Wait, I have about 1 million questions, but we are at time. So where can people find you? How do you get this app? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So right now, we are in beta mode until October 30th. So anybody that signs up is going to be part of our exclusive Beta Breaker Club that has exclusive things and everything. You can go to the App Store, the Game Store, the Play Store, I think it's on Android, and just search for HumanOp, right? And then you can also go to humanop.com and you can get all of our information there. We're all over the social medias and everything, and you can geek out on the Instagram videos I tell, just teaching people. Now, if you're local to us, we have a powerful community here at our headquarters here in Cupertino in Silicon Valley, and we do free workshops every week just to help people understand how to use the tool to solve everyday problems. Like, for example, tonight we're going to do how to build and create high-performing teams, and it's free. You just come in with the technology, your app, and everything with your results, and then we just workshop through helping you really understand how to use it to solve everyday problems.
Is this every Thursday night? Because I'm there like every other month.
You have to come by. If you're here every other month, you need to come by every Thursday night, except for next week. I'll be out of town. But otherwise,
it's the weekend before Canadian Thanksgiving. How could you be in town, you know?
exactly. I know.
Well, Wei, thank you so much. What stayed with me here is the idea that the most radical thing we can do in leadership might be to stop asking people to change and start designing the systems that fit who they already are, which is, you've completely blown my mind, and we might have to have another episode. And for those
My
of you
pleasure.
watching, if this episode gave you something to think about, sign up for our free insight drop. The link is in the show notes, or check it out at certain.co/podcast. That's CERTN.co/podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone.